Here's a question I was asked. Did being involved with law enforcement inspire or play a role in how you view and practice martial arts? Yes, it did. It did. Like before law enforcement, I was like mainly focusing on, what Bruce Lee would focus on, just like the unarmed combative training. I didn't really work much with weapons at all, and I didn't really focus on the reality of how it is on the streets. Like as far as like death is concerned, I was focusing more on just like the playfulness type of unarmed combative training. When I got into law enforcement, it changed the way that I trained and my perspective on the martial arts. First, what I liked about the law enforcement was how they had a power test, like a fitness test that you needed to pass in order to even get hired. Like, basically, it didn't matter like how intelligent you were or how educated or how wise or whatever. If you didn't meet their basic fitness standards, you just could not be hired in. And I like that aspect, that physical fitness component of the law enforcement. Even though it wasn't like that challenging, the fact that they even had a fitness standard, to me, I think was a great thing. There's no really other employment that really has such a thing, where they demand like physical fitness. They have it for like firefighting, they got it for the military, they got it for law enforcement, but they don't really have it much for anything else out there. So I like that component, and I ended up integrating that into kind of my development of like a structure of what I feel like a real martial artist should represent, or embody. I feel that a real martial artist needs to be extremely fit, in all areas, not just like basic areas of running and push-ups and sit-ups, but just like a lot of different exercises. So I created like a whole list of exercises and standards that I feel that all people that practice martial arts should be able to, fulfill, on a consistent basis, just a maintenance, year after year, day after day. They need to maintain a high level of training based on age and gender, and that's how the power test was as well. It was based on age and gender, and I feel that that needs to be integrated into the martial arts. It's very important, not just for hiring purposes, but just for for life. Until you die, you need to live up to certain fitness standards, I believe. Another thing that the law enforcement influenced me on was there's this training that I took called like pressure point control tactics, which is basically I ended up taking a certification course to be an instructor in that training. And what that training did was it introduced me and made me realize like the importance of like not having to result in like lethal force immediately, or like even severe force immediately. Like that type of training influenced me to take care of to not use excessive force based on the circumstances, to basically be able to handle a situation with minimum force in order to protect the well-being of the person that you're trying to arrest, and not just to demolish the person, to basically just get that person to surrender, and to put him, and just to get that, get the cuffs onto that person, that to not really have to put excessive force, so you would utilize techniques in order to protect the safety of the offender. So this serves purposes of decreasing the chances of you getting sued and things of that nature, the department as well. And for me, it's more of a spiritual thing where you shouldn't have to hurt somebody more than you have to. You know, if you could hurt them less and get them, you know, under control, then that's what you want to do. And that went along a lot with my philosophy. And I feel that the founder of Aikido had that in mind as well, and he was very attentive and aware that that was very important, that when you are dealing with an attacker or somebody's trying to hurt you, you don't have to really go all out on the person and destroy them, you know. You could like change up the techniques that you use in order to minimize the damage to the person that you're trying to defend yourself against. So that type of training encouraged me to practice different type of techniques, you know, other than striking techniques, in order to get the person to, you know, under control. You know, utilizing like pressure points and joint manipulations and things like that. Like it influenced me to widen up my range of my expression of techniques in order to deal with a situation more effectively without resulting in like excessive force. So that was a huge thing. Another thing that it influenced me was the use of the firearms and that type of training. We went through a lot of scenarios where they would actually show us right before our eyes like how easy it is to die from a gun, and how quick the reaction time is from just the average human being, and how quick their reaction time is in drawing and firing, and how, you know, your life could end in an instant. You know what I mean? Like you think that you have the situation under control, and then, you know, you don't realize, or you underestimate the person, and you don't think that they have a weapon when they really do, and then they end up shooting and killing you immediately. It shows you, like, you know, before your eyes, like, you know, firefighting, you know, like fighting with guns, and how serious the situation is. You know, also the training also, you know, influenced me on, you know, just constantly watching videos of police officers pulling over offenders and then getting shot and killed, or shot and seriously injured, and how quick that your life would end, you know, and when you die by the gun. You know, also watching videos with people getting shot, people getting killed on this, you know, from security footage, you know, also being put in scenarios where you're being attacked by like 3 people, you know, and how difficult it is to defend yourself against that. And, you know, it's not as easy as it seems, as they make it out to be in the movies. You know, the 3 people would just be coming at you, and they would just tackle you, you know, or bring you down or whatever, and you can't really do anything. And then even like they'll put in a scenario where, you know, you're an offender and you're getting you know, 5 officers are coming to you to arrest you, and how each officer grabs a part of you. Like one person gets control of your head, another officer gets control of your arm, and another officer gets control of the other arm, another one gets the leg, the other one gets the leg, and how just they all just take you down all at once. And there's really nothing you could do to stop that, you know. You know, there's nothing you could do, you know, and it's just showing the reality of how it really is, you know. You know, when you're fighting against multiple people, when you're fighting with guns, people when they have the weapons and knives, and people come at you with knives, and how you're gonna have to you know, survive that when you are armed. You know, I mean, it's just also another thing that influenced me is just like being aware of you know, the law, and how, you know, you just can't do anything that you want to do. You know, you need to follow the code of the law, and you have to study and be aware of like what is justified and what is not justified in a certain situation. No matter if you're a police officer or a citizen, you need to be aware of like, hey, you know, if this person attacks me, what am I justified to do by the law in order to defend myself? You know, if you cross that line, then you end up becoming the offender, and then you could be the one that ends up going to jail. You know what I mean? So it's like situations like that, you know, just, and also situations where, you know, they would teach you like how if you know, if somebody, what to do if somebody was like, stole a purse and started running down the street, and then you see that. What do? You can't just like shoot them, just shoot them in the back. You know what I mean? Like, you shoot him in the back, as an officer, while he's running away from you and he's not a threat to you or anybody else, that could mean that you could go to jail for basically like manslaughter. You know what I'm saying? Like, you weren't supposed to shoot him. You weren't justified to shoot him at that instance. It gets very detailed. You know what I mean? Like, you have to learn about the forcible felonies and things like that. I mean, if somebody just like killed somebody or just robbed a bank with a gun and he's running away, then you might be justified in shooting him then. But if he didn't do anything where it's a forcible felony and you end up shooting him in the back, you could end up in a lot of trouble. You could end up in jail too. So I mean, like, you need to be aware of like when to do what. There's also like a use of force curriculum where you had to be aware of, like, you gotta be able to control the situation with minimum force, just the right amount of force necessary. You can't just like escalate it to a life and death situation just because somebody decided not to listen to you, or the person said no. You know what I mean? Like, you have to assess the situation and judge to see like which weapon or which technique you're gonna utilize for a certain instance. So it was a huge influence in my development, and understanding like, the difference between, the martial arts training and just like the way the real world is, and how you have to be aware of the law, and how it's a life and death situation out there when it boils down to like real danger, and the perspective of police officers and what they have to deal with, and also the average citizen out there and what they have to deal with, and just not getting caught up in the fantasy of these movies and these forms of entertainment like boxing or wrestling or WWF or whatever. Like, real survival is on the streets, and police officers, they're a part of that, and the real martial artists that train for the streets, they're a part of that as well, but it really changed my perspective on a lot of things, and that formulated a lot of what I do and how I approach certain situations, and introducing the firearms into your realm of development, and just not just firearms but all sorts of weapons. It really changes things dynamically, and if you don't ever receive that type of training, then you're just gonna remain ignorant to it, and you just won't know any better. But until you start training in that aspect, you're still gonna be limited in how you perceive the real world to be. But I live in an area where there's constant deaths due to shootings, and it's a different world. It's not the world that people are watching on TV, and this competition sport fighting. It's not like that at all. So my perspective on things are very different, and I'm bringing that perspective into the realm of the martial arts, to kind of share my life experiences with the people.